Welcome to the Champions Round Show. My name is Jason Gold, and I am joined for the first time by our newest Champions Round team member, Dan Turner. Dan, welcome to the team and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jason. I'm really excited to get this going and see what we can do together.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome time. So for those of you who don't know, Dan comes to us from a couple of different places, but we still hold him away from Front Yard Fantasy, our good buddies over there. So thrilled to have him on our content team and also helping us as we build our app. Speaking of our app, stay tuned because August 9th, we have some big announcements about some cash games that are going to come to the Champions Round app. So be sure to follow us on all the social media channels for more information on that coming on Monday. For today, we're going to ease Dan in a little bit. We're going to do a little bit of talking about approach when it comes to redraft leagues, and then we're going to go through some buys, sells, and sleepers that we love for each position heading into your draft. So it's just the beginning of August. We just have a little taster for you guys. Everybody's starting to prepare for their drafts, except for the degenerates like us who have been drafting for months. That's why we're here to help you. So let's help get everybody going with a little approach in their standard home league. So what I want to talk to you first about, Dan, is top of the first round. Let's say that you have one of the top 5 picks. Are you 100% going running back here? Or is there a particular player, maybe a tight end, maybe a wide receiver that may slip in to your thinking in the first 5 picks?
I mean, if I'm going the first 5 picks, I'm definitely looking at the running backs. I think that's the one position where obviously there's no guarantee in fantasy, as we saw last year. As someone who drafted Saquon Barkley second overall and saw him get in, play about 2 snaps and losing him for the year. But I think you're looking at the quote unquote workhorses at those spots, and then after that is a pretty big drop off where there's still some solid players, but there's just a lot of some question marks that go along with them. The only guy that might, depending on what kind of maybe it's like a keeper league or something that could enter in that discussion, would be Travis Kelce. But otherwise, I'm looking at the top 5. I'm going running back for all 5 of those picks.
Okay, so we're talking about a 12-team half PPR. I feel like, at least in my life, that's the standard that everybody plays at. All your home leagues are kind of based on that. Now, I think that I probably only have 2 leagues that are like that right now. A lot of my stuff is Dynasty and more interesting and a little bit more longer form, but 12-team half PPR, kind of the standard. So at what point does Kelce, and I agree with you, that would be the first player that comes to my mind who's non-running back here. At what point does Kelce come into your thinking if you have, or when you have your first round pick?
I'm thinking anywhere probably after pick number, I'd say 8, I'd be comfortable taking Kelce then. I think at pick 8, you see a drop off in terms of where running backs, and maybe you want to take a receiver or 2 if Hill's there. But after that, I'm more than happy taking Kelce in the back half of the first round, and then if you're doing a snake draft on the way back, picking up a running back there, because there should still be some solid options on the comeback on the second round.
Okay, so speaking of the running backs who would be in your top 7, so I think that it's very clearly that we're talking about McCaffrey, Saquon, Dalvin, Kamara. So those are the top 4 guys. Unless I'm mistaken, am I leaving someone out here?
No. That's
okay. Okay.
Right.
So who are the guys that you're looking at, like 5, 6, 7, who are going to be ahead of Kelce in your mind?
I'm taking Henry, Chubb, and Taylor as well.
Okay.
To round out that 7. I know that a lot of people are high on Ezekiel Elliott. I personally am not one of them. I know and I'm not a hater just because I know I'm an Eagles fan and he's a Cowboy. But I personally think that last year he seemed to slow down a little bit. I know that Dak is coming back and they have all their pass catchers and the line is improving. I just think that he's had a lot of miles put on his tires, and I just don't know if he can replicate the kind of return that you're going to need to invest in him in the top, 6 or 7 picks to warrant that kind of draft capital.
So 2 questions on this. The
Sure.
first is I will make a point. I am firmly on the Tony Pollard is better than Ezekiel Elliott bandwagon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Someone agrees.
That is a firm stance I've taken all off season. I'm firm on that team. So I'm definitely Zeke a little end of any draft right now. in terms of Jonathan Taylor, what do you think the Wentz injury and maybe more importantly, the Quentin Nelson injury does to his draft stock? Do you think it drops it where you would take Kelsey ahead? Do you think you should take him still at the same spot, or where do you kind of have him based on those injuries?
For me, I wouldn't drop him as of right now. I know that Nelson's injury timeline is kind of ambiguous. It's kind of a big range there on when exactly he's injured for. I wasn't a really big believer in Wentz in the first place, so I don't think it's as big of a loss as some other people are claiming. I think Nelson is obviously the bigger loss. If Nelson is out, say like six games, then yeah, that's probably going to affect Taylor, a bunch. But if he's out maybe 1, 2, even 3 games, I think Taylor is still premier talent that he can. It's not like they're just going to have nobody at that spot. There's going to be a guy there that replaces Nelson for a couple of games, and the rest of the line is still solid. So I'm not gonna bump him down as of right now due to those injuries.
Okay, fair enough. I'm kind of on the same page with you. I dropped him a little bit, but I would probably still take him. I'd probably be comfortable around 9 or 10 taking him. At 6 or 7, maybe not. I'd rather have Chubb or Henry.
I have him firmly at 8, right after Henry and Chubb in my
in your rankings. All right, yeah. Fair enough. So let's get to a little bit more strategy here. So let's say it seems like you're firmly committed to let's get a running back round 1, and then I'm assuming, because this is what you do, that you're on the hero RB bandwagon maybe a little bit. You take your running back and then you go hit some wide receivers, or are you doubling up on the running backs?
It really depends for me what people do in front of you. I think that the hero running back, it all depends where you're drafting. If you're drafting, say, in like the top 5, yeah, you'd go take your Barkley or your Kamara, and then on the way back, maybe take a top receiver or something. If you're down on the lower end of the first round, I'd definitely go maybe like a Chubb, Jones, or somewhere like that, just to have those running backs squared away, and then worry about the positions later. Like I personally am more of a 0 running back kind of guy. Personally.
Okay, there you go.
I think that people after the first, like, say 7 or 8 running backs, I think that people are reaching because the options get a lot smaller. The pool of guys is a lot smaller, and they miss out on like the top receivers that are going to get you the more consistent point returns week to week. I think, obviously the purpose of fantasy is to score more points than the other guy. And I think, like, when you draft, I think you just have to maximize the point return for each of your draft slots. And I don't think reaching for the, running back 11 or 12 when you can get the wide receiver 1 or 2 or their tight end 1 or 2 is good. Not that I hate the running backs there, obviously, Jones and running backs of that caliber are very talented. I just think that personally that the point returns are better if you go for like a Hill or Devontae Adams or Kelsey in that spot.
All right, I like it. So when it comes to quarterbacks, for me personally, I have a top 6, and I think there's a big break. I either want one of the first 6, or I'll wait until Tannehill or Burrow or whoever way at the end of the draft. Where are you targeting quarterbacks, and are you a guy who's going to grab one of the early ones, or are you going to wait till the end?
I'm waiting till the end. I think quarterback is so deep, even with the mocks I've been doing. Patrick Mahomes is going in like the 3rd, 4th round, and that's just. I understand he's Patrick Mahomes, but you're getting at least 80% of what he can give you in round 13, 14. I've seen Matthew Stafford last until that long, and he could have a breakout year with the Rams offense. And I just don't see, giving up that early of a pick on a position where especially this year, it seems to be pretty deep. And I agree with you that there probably is a top 6, but I'm not going to be someone that reaches. That's going to pay what it costs to get one of those top 6 guys when there's other guys that later on that can provide not equal value, but at least similar enough where the drop off isn't that intense.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. And there have been some leagues where I've been smoked on the top 6 and you just wait till the end. That's fine. I'm not someone that's going to take Mahomes either. I think that the 3rd or 4th is kind of ridiculous. What I really like the zone is the 5th and 6th round, especially if you're at the turn there between 5 and 6. If Kyler or Dak is there, or because I had good experience in the past of taking a good end, but I totally understand the idea of waiting till the end and grabbing. Yeah, Stafford would be a great one, especially after Akers is out. They're going to chuck the rock all over the place. Burrow, exactly. They're going to be down. I love being on the team, and this is kind of the point with Dak, which is I kind of have him as QB2 right now, and maybe sneaky QB1. Is I love taking quarterbacks when their defense just stinks. Right, You're going to have to throw the ball all over the place. If it's not too punitive in terms of interceptions in your leagues, go ahead. I actually think. And I was running through the Detroit Lions yesterday. I was doing some numbers on them. They're going to be down by so many points in games. I know they don't have receivers here, but Goff is going to throw the ball. It seems like he's going to throw the ball 50 times a game. You might just sneak him on the bottom of your roster. You might actually get good value from him.
We call that so he's basically going to pull Blake Bortles where his team sucks. And, those garbage time touchdowns still count in fantasy. So, hey, if you're down by 35 points and he throws 2 at the end, hey, it's points for your team. So I definitely agree with you. I mean, everyone is, Goff is not put in a great situation right now, but if, throws a couple of garbage time touchdowns every week, hey, it's going to be good for your team.
I feel like everybody who plays fantasy seriously always buys in on any team that has a terrible defense. It's just one of the weird things that we do. And everybody who's just like a normal player is like, I don't want their team stinks. I'm like, if their team stinks, I'll gobble up those points at the end of the game. I'll take it.
It means that their defense is not going to be around the field very long, and the offense is going to get back on and score more points for you, so you should want them.
Gotta love it. All right, tight end's kind of the same thing as quarterback, where you either have to decide that you're going to want one of the top 5 or 6 guys or wait. How do you feel about it this year, and are there any tight ends other than Kelsey that you would particularly target at the top of drafts?
I would go with I target Waller as well. I think Waller is about not in Kelsey's by himself, but Waller's I think really close. He's a 1B for me this year. I think he's the focal point of Las Vegas's offense. Kelsey's obviously going in the first or early second in most drafts, and Waller's going a little bit cheaper. So if you can hit some good positions in your say first 3 rounds, and Waller's there in the late third or early fourth, I wouldn't mind picking him up there. So
the 5 tight ends, I guess maybe there's 6 here we're talking about. It's Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, Pitts, Andrews, and then my personal favorite this year, and I was just talking about the Lions, is TJ Hawkinson. I've been taking him in 4th or 5th round whenever I can get my hands on him. And only for this reason. I think he's going to finish as the top 3 tight end. As I just said, their defense is terrible. And he kind of has the Waller vibe in that he's the top receiver on the team. They're going to throw the ball all over the field. If you think that Hawkinson, you can get top 3 or top 2 tight end value out of him, I think it's someone that you can target, especially in the 5th round. I think you're getting great value there. Pitts, any sort of dynasty, or you got to keep him for, great, go get him. Scares the crap out of me as a rookie tight end. We just have no history of like anyone being successful there. The most successful rookie tight end ever is Evan Ingram. So not exactly great here.
I feel like if Pitts doesn't have 200 targets for 3,000 yards and 600 touchdowns, it's going to be a disappointment for some people. So, I mean, with Julio gone, it's realistically he's going to get his target share. The target's going to be there for him. It's just like you said, like tight ends haven't done it as rookies in the league. Not saying he can't do it. Like it's always like the first one to do something, but it's scary how high he's being taken with we have no research or anything on how he's going to do at the pro level.
Exactly. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some wide receivers that we have in the middle rounds. Me personally, I'll take my RB at the top. Maybe I'll get a quarterback or a tight end in between, but most of the picks between rounds 2, let's say 7 or 8, ends up being wide receiver for me. Are there guys in there that you're specifically targeting that you think are going to be huge breakouts? I don't want to talk too much about what we're going to talk about a little bit later, but a couple of guys that you're kind of have your eyes focused on.
I think one guy in particular that I've been, harping on for a long time now is Robert Woods. I think the upgrade that he's getting with Stafford in that offensive system, and now the injury to Cam Akers, there's going to be throwing the rock a lot more than maybe originally expected. I think he's just the type of receiver that can flourish with him as his quarterback, and the value and where he's going in drafts. I mean, you can basically get him as your wide receiver 2 or 3, and he could potentially put up high wide receiver 2, low wide receiver 1 weeks most of the time. So I'm definitely looking to get him in every draft I'm in so far.
Awesome. Number one guy, We'll talk about it later. I'm just running all my stuff. I think Lamb's going to have just an absolutely massive season. I have him as a top 10 wide receiver this year. I actually have him 9th overall. I could see going higher. The Amari Cooper, he's kind of have some lagging injuries. Maybe he's healthy. I don't care. They're going to throw the ball all over the place. And I'm definitely a sucker for everything that I see in training camp. Unfortunately, I just can't stay away from it. And from everything that we've seen, he just looks like, maybe the best wide receiver in the league. I know this may hurt as an Eagles fan, but
it does a little bit. But I get it.
Oh, man. Yeah, he's been fantastic. All right, last point here. Actually, 2 more things here, and then we'll move to the second part of our podcast. The running backs. So you said you're a 0 RB guy. That's near and dear to your heart. Mm-hmm. Who are the zero RB guys this year that you have to be targeting?
Well, I think one of the popular ones is Mike Davis. I think that with people are waiting for him to lose a job in Atlanta, but he had a solid year before getting there. He had a solid year in Carolina, so I think that if given the opportunity, he can do a lot with it, and he's going really really late. You can go like 6-7 rounds in, and if you can get him as your running back 1, he's not going to be Derrick Henry, and that's not what you're drafting him for, but a guy that can hold it down and give you that 10-12 point production a week to keep your team going. I'm definitely looking to grab him if I'm going 0 running back.
Awesome. Any other guys that you have in your mind? I have a couple that I would like to talk about. Obviously, we talked about Pollard at the top. That's my guy. I'll take him all day. Damian Harris, also kind of in that 7th, 8th round. Mm-hmm. It's always dicey with Patriots running backs, but he seems to be the number 1 guy there. Chase Edmonds also could be tasty, 7th, 8th round. And then, as always, the San Francisco roulette. Maybe take a couple of them and see which one hits. It might be a little bit too dicey. But the problem is when they play, they always produce really well. You just don't know which one's going to play. Yeah. So
it's always the guy either you don't have or he's on your bench that is always the one that's killing it that week in San Francisco.
The joke that I had 2 years ago was the Matt Breida thing, that every time he was on the injury report, he was going to have 25 points, and every time he wasn't, he was going to have 0.
You were probably right about that, honestly.
Yeah, it was the worst. All right. The last point I want to make here or talk to you about is kickers and defense. Standard, you get 16 picks in a draft to fill out your roster. Are you one of the guys who's going to actually take a kicker in a defense? Do you think there's value in taking either of those positions? Or do you just draft normal players and then wait until the week before or a couple of days before, drop a couple of guys and then pick up
I'm one of the guys that, I'll take a bunch of players and then just pick up a kicker. If you're doing a standard 12-team league, if you somehow got the 13th kicker, I mean, kickers are so like up and down. The usually like a top 5 kicker or 2 is usually on the waiver wire starting week 1, and you can pick them up and ride them the rest of the year. Same with defenses. Yeah, you're gonna miss out maybe like the top 5 defense, but 6 or 7 is gonna be do just fine for you. And I'd rather take a shot on using those late round picks on someone like a James Robinson that injury could happen in camp or he breaks out in camp, and then hey, you got yourself a running back 1 in round 16, and you're set for the year. So I'd rather take with those last 2 slots. People usually use them on kickers or defenses. I usually, want to take shots on guys like a Pollard or a Hines or someone like that could theoretically, return more value than whatever kicker or defense you get there.
Absolutely, I'm fully on board with that. The only thing that I have seen is if top 5 kicker, or not even top 5, top 3, the guys that they're going to be awesome, that are on offenses, they're going to be awesome. If they somehow slip, if everybody's doing that, maybe I'll zag a little bit. And I'll take a Justin Tucker in round 14. Just like, okay, great. I locked up a number 1 kicker. So what?
Yeah.
But that's about the only time that I'll do that.
Right. Yeah. In that specific case, then yeah, absolutely. I would definitely look to grab one. If everyone's doing the fade strategy on them, then I'll pick up the top 1 or 2 guys and not worry about it later.
All right. So let's move on. The second part of the podcast, we're going to take each position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. You're going to give me 1 lock, 1 sleeper, and 1 player to avoid at each position. So let's start at the top, and I'll let you go for your quarterbacks.
All right. So my quarterback lock is actually going to be Tom Brady. He's one of the guys that we're talking about before. You're not getting the Mahomes or, Kylers or Dax, but he was quarterback 7 last year. He threw, 40 touchdowns, had 4,600 yards. He's going in around, I think, like 12 ADP wise right now. So he's the kind of guy you're waiting on a quarterback, and you take him. He's gonna produce for you. All his weapons are coming back. He has a backfield loaded at the receiver position with Evans and Brown and Godwin. He has a bunch of Gronk's coming back. OJ Howard's still there. So he's a guy that, if I wait on quarterback, I'd be more than happy to scoop him up where he's currently going. I know He's going to produce week to week.
All right, who's your sleeper?
So this is 100% a homer pick, but I think it's going to be Jalen Hurts. I think that with an offseason to work on it, with a new coaching staff coming in, everyone wants to talk about his 52% completion percentage, and I understand that's a concern. But if you're drafting him, later on, he's one of those Konami guys that has the rushing potential as well. And I think he's someone that if the offense works right, the Indy offense that Sirianni is bringing to Philly, he can return top 7, top 5 value for you at draft capital that's nowhere near that kind of price. So I'm definitely looking to grab him if I maybe stack him with Brady if I need 2 QBs, and if Hurts works out, great. If not, then Brady's there as the not as high upside maybe, but the consistent guy that's going to get you those points.
Awesome. All right, and your avoid.
I'm avoiding all the rookie guys. I know everyone loves Fields and Lawrence and Lance, but we don't know. Besides Lawrence, we don't know when they're going to start. They're still rookies, and they're going to have to learn systems. The speed of the NFL is different than in college, and I know everyone loves that. All these guys have rushing ability now, and they can't be worse than Fields. Obviously, can't be worse than Trubisky was. But for redraft, I just don't want to pin. If they start week 10, I don't want to pin my playoff hopes on people that don't have any regular season experience at the QB position in the league. I understand that they have tremendous upside, but it's just for me, it's too big of a risk to depend my fantasy season on.
Totally understandable. All right, so my lock, I'm going to go with someone. You went a little bit down the board. I'm going to stick with my top 6. I'm going to go with Dak. I think this is the comeback season of all comeback seasons. I truly think that this is a MVP caliber season. A lot depends on their defense and them being good enough. I don't know if that'll be true, but I think that he will put up MVP stats this year. And given the fact that he's like the 4th or 5th quarterback off the board right now, I think it's really good value. So my lock is Dak. My sleepers, I have 2 of them. One I mentioned, Jared Goff, just based on the fact their defense is going to stick. He's going to throw the ball all over the field. And I actually think he has – we'll see what he has a wide receiver, but he has Hawkinson and he has DeAndre Swift, 2 very capable receivers, and kind of do different things, a little bit safer. I think that at the end of games, he's going to put up a ton of points. The other one is Taysom Hill. A lot depends on what's going to happen here, but Michael Thomas going out, I think, provides a lot of value for Hill actually end up being the starting quarterback. I think they're going to go for a safer, heavier run offense, which means that Hill's going to be the guy. And if he's the guy you saw last year when he played in 4 games, he's really good in fantasy. He runs the ball so much. He's just good value. And if people want to keep thinking that Winston's going to start, great. I'll grab Hill in the 15th round. If I'm wrong, no sweat off my back. You just drop him. And if you're right, you have a starting caliber quarterback in the 15th round. So I'll go with Taysom Hill. My avoids, the same reason that I like Taysom Hill, do not draft Jameis. Just don't do it. And then any of the quarterbacks you may think, oh, I'll grab them late, like Matt Ryan or like Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know why you would take him in any league. Maybe you're like, okay, I'll get like Andy Dalton and he'll start let's get him in round 16. He'll start for a couple weeks. He'll look good and I'll trade him for someone that has a quarterback injured. Just avoid all of those guys. If you're going to go down the list and wait like a quarterback like you want, go get a Burrow and a Tannehill. At least that you're going to have success with those guys. Don't wait until the very, very end or think that you're smarter than everybody and go grab Matt Ryan. It's not going to work out well for you. You don't have to spend all your capital on a quarterback, but let's spend some.
A little bit. Just a
little bit. All right. Let's move over to the running backs. Who do you got for a lock?
So for a lock, I'm going a little bit down the board. I'm going to go with Chris Carson. I think Carson is one of those guys that is underrated sometimes. He was injured a little bit last year, missed a couple games. 2 years before that, he put up over 1,100 yards. He has like 4.6 yards per attempt average for his career. You're getting him pretty much after the first like wave or two of all those other top flight running backs, and he's giving you the similar kind of production. He doesn't really have that much of someone that could take carries away from him. I don't think Rashard Penny is ever going to be a thing, and people have to let that go. But I think that Carson, if he can stay healthy for those, I think 17 games now, he's definitely someone that can definitely produce for you and put up those borderline running back one numbers.
All right, who's your sleeper?
My sleeper is going to be someone that I reached for greatly last year and regretted. It's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think that he was super hyped because of his draft capital and his landing spot. I think that people understood that he wasn't the most talented running back coming out of last year's class, but the fact that he went to the Chiefs offense, probably put him up higher than he should have been, and I got caught in that trap as well. Full disclosure, I thought he was going to be much better than he was, but I think that now people have taken it a little too far in the other direction. I think that a year more in the system, KC has improved their O-line. I think he can return some really big value as the running back one over there in Kansas City.
All right, and now you're a void.
I touched on it before, but it's going to be Zeke. I think that with what you're going to need to pay to get him, I don't think he's going to return the value that you're hoping to get. I think that the people that were making excuses for him last year, that the fact that there was no Dak and everything, failed to realize that Tony Pollard had those exact same restrictions and looked much better with the same players, surrounding him. So I don't think that I think that's kind of a cop out to excuse Zeke's bad performance. I think he's running out of gas a little bit. I think that the carries and everything are catching up to him. He's almost like 400 touches a year almost. Not everyone can last that long. I think that Pollard is going to take a little more work than people are expecting, and I just don't want to take him, as a top 7 running back where you're going to need to take him. I think that there are other options available there that are going to return a lot more value to you, and I just won't be touching them at all in any drafts.
All right, so my number one avoid was also Zeke Elliott. I'm right there with you on this one. My other 2 avoids, Melvin Gordon, just because I think Javonte is going to end up being a guy I would not pay the price to go get Melvin right now. And then basically anyone on the Texans running backs, David Johnson, Mark Ingram. Maybe you could convince me that Philip Lindsay's a thing, even though he's probably 3rd on the depth chart right now. He's the one that seems like maybe he's the one who breaks out, but I kind of really don't want to touch any of them. So I'd be avoiding them at all costs. My sleeper, I kind of mentioned already, Damian Harris. He was really good last year, and I think that if he gets more carries and maybe a little bit more involved in the passing game, I think he holds real value for someone that you can get in the 7th or 8th round in redrafts right now. I would love to have him as an RB2 in most of my leagues. So I'm fully in on that. The one that way down the board, and I've talked about Pollard. I love Pollard. That'd be great. As I don't know if he can be a sleeper based on how much I've hyped him this offseason, but I'll take it anyways. The late one is Salvin Ahmed. I think that he has a path, especially if Gaskin gets injured, to be the guy. And I think that Miami, especially if Tua's pushing the ball a little bit further down the field, I think that there's room for a running back to see less people in the box and actually have real success there. And I liked what he showed last year. He was very productive when he was playing. So that'd be kind of a guy that I'm targeting like 15th, 16th round. One of the guys that you were talking about, like may hit. Maybe Gaskin goes down. Maybe he's not as good as people think he is. All right, so I'm fully in the Ahmed bandwagon, even though he's a Washington Husky, which I hate, but that's okay. My running back lock, I just think the safest guy on the board, and maybe this is the last year I'm going to feel like this, is Derrick Henry, just because of the amount of touches that he's getting. But he seemingly never get injured. He's bigger than linebackers, and you got 2 wide receivers down the field. He's going to be seeing less stacked boxes. Like so long as he is healthy, I don't see any way that he doesn't have, another 1,400 yard season and double-digit touchdowns. So, yes, he doesn't catch the ball that much out of the backfield, although he is an improved receiver over his career. He's just not going to get the ball a lot there. But he's still going to get 20 touches a game. He's still going to rush for 90 to 120 yards a game. He's still going to it's just like if you're going to play safe, I would go with to your
absolutely
wide receivers.
Henry take.
Yeah.
100%.
Availability. Let's go over to your. Yeah, let's go to wide receivers. You want to hit your lock?
My lock's going to be Calvin Ridley. I think that he's ready to step up with Julio Jones, gone. I think that he's going to be the bona fide wide receiver one. I pretty much he could be at the end of the year an argument for the overall wide receiver one. I think that Ryan's going to pepper in with targets. It's going to be a throwing offense as it's been for a while now, and I think there's really nothing standing in the way of him, producing top 2 numbers, honestly. I mean, if he stays healthy, of course. Health is always the issue, but if he stays healthy, there's no way he's not putting up top 3 numbers.
I love Calvin Ridley. He won me at least 2 leagues last year. I love Calvin Ridley forever. All right, let's head over to your sleeper.
My sleeper's actually going to, staying in the same team, it's going to be Russell Gage. I know he's a little farther down the list. I think he performed pretty decently when Julio wasn't active last year because of injury. I think that all the targets that Julio's leaving behind aren't going to go to Kyle Pitts. He's someone that you can get really cheap, but he can put up, some either flex or wide receiver 3 weeks for you pretty consistently. He had over 100 targets last year, 4 touchdowns. So someone that towards the end of the draft, if you're looking at the list and, trying to hold your nose and picking someone because there's just isn't much left, I'd say go get him and see he can produce for you.
All right, now you're avoid.
I'm going to go with someone that's getting a bit of hype, and that's Brandon Ayuk. I know that he's a great talent. I just think that how he produced last year was a large part of injuries around him. Debo was out for a while. Kittle was out for most of the year. I think with those 2 guys returning, and if Lance starts, we don't know how good Lance is going to be quarterback wise. I think that with all those factors and where his hype is putting him, I think it's a little too high for where I would want him. I think there's going to be, other guys in that tier where he's being drafted, like a Robert Woods, that I prefer much greater over where Ayuk is going.
All right. So in terms of our sleeper, you're reading my mind. I'm the biggest Russell Gage fan ever. Full stan. He's my number 1 sleeper. I'll grab him anywhere in draft. I think honestly, starting probably round 9, I've drafted him as high as that, based on how my wide receiver position looks. I love him this year. And you're right. Between the fact that he had 100 targets last year, Julio's gone. We're pretty sure Pitts is great, but he may not get as many targets as we think, given that everybody thinks he's going to have 3,000 targets. I think he's going to be really productive this year. The other wide receiver that I have, and this is maybe a little bit of anti-Cole Beasley stuff here, but I think that Gabe Davis is going to have a huge season. You saw it last year. He was pretty productive, stretches the ball down the field. They need someone else that's going to be able to make plays down the field other than Stephon Diggs. Emmanuel Sanders, people are concerned about him maybe for Davis. I actually think that it cuts more into the Beasley time, and I think he's going to play way more slot. So I think that Davis has a chance to be a real breakout this year. My avoids, Amari, Deontay Johnson, just because I think he's the 3rd most talented receiver on Pittsburgh, and I think that Claypool takes a lot of his targets, and everything underneath always goes to Juju. So I think that Deontay kind of maybe gets left out a little bit this year. And then DJ Shark, who I think may now be the 4th best wide receiver on Jacksonville, behind Visca and Marvin Jones. I mean, they actually have some options. And ETN, if he ends up playing wide receiver for them, I think the Shark, he might have some real issues this year. I actually wouldn't be surprised to see him be traded early on in the season. It would not shock me. He might actually have fantasy value after that, but not before. So I'm passing on him in most leagues. My lock, I already talked about it. Give me CeeDee Lamb all day. But I do like the Calvin Ridley one. He's a lock. I definitely think that he could be the wide receiver one also, given his health. As long as he's healthy, I think he should be good. But if I could get in the Scott Fish Bowl, which we were both talking about before, and we were both in, I have a Ridley Lamb stack. And I'm pretty excited about that one. I want to see how that works out for me.
Yeah. That can take you to the championship, that kind of stuff like that.
Absolutely. I'll be very excited about those two. All right. Last one, tight ends. Why don't you give me my
lock? It's going to be I think I touched on him before. It's going to be Darren Waller. I think he's easily the most talented pass catcher on that offense. He's going to get at least 130 targets. He's going to break 1,000 yards. I mean, that's pretty much all you want in a tight end is that kind of target share and production. So I think there's no way he's going to be any lower than tight end 3 this year. And he's cheaper than Kelce. You know, he's getting into that Kelce realm, but he still doesn't have like the name of Kelce, so you can probably get him a little bit cheaper, and he can equally match what Kelce's going to produce.
All right, let's go to your sleeper.
My sleeper is actually going to be Jared Cook. He's over in on the Chargers now, and you know with Hunter Henry gone, the only pass catchers right now, you know, Eckler's a good pass catcher. You got Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, but there's really nothing, not too much left at tight end after Henry left. You know, Cook is definitely not one of those guys that's flashy or anything, but he's a guy that produces. He's got, you know, 896, 705, and 504 the last 3 years. He always puts up at least 6 touchdowns. So he's someone that, you know, if you wait on tight end, you know, go grab him, see what he can do. You know, Herbert's in his second year there. He's a good quarterback. It's a wide open offense. I think he can do well there.
All right. I like that one a lot. Let's go to your player to avoid.
It's going to be Kyle Pitts. I know everyone loves Kyle Pitts, and, you know, he's going to be, you know, the best thing that's ever been invented since sliced bread. I just think that the hype has gone completely out of control for someone that hasn't played a down in the NFL yet. I'm not saying that I'm a hater. I'm not saying he's not talented. I just need to see it first before I'm putting him in the top, you know, 3 tight ends where he's currently going. I'm not going to pay that price for him. I'd rather wait, you know, and draft someone like a Dallas Goedert or someone like that a little bit later on. I could end up being wrong. He could end up having the greatest season in the history of professional football, but, you know, I'll be okay, you know, passing on where he's going in drafts.
Absolutely. Very fair, especially in redraft. In Dynasty, you got to get him.
Yeah, Dynasty, he's a one-on-one this year and next year. I mean, so
yeah, absolutely.
That's fine. It's a completely different animal.
Yeah. My lock, you know what? It's tough to say that there's a better lock than Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. They're going to be awesome, but I'll go TJ Hawkinson. I just think it's a massive year. I think there's a chance he finishes as one of the top 3 tight ends for sure. Wouldn't be surprised to see him at 1 or 2. Big year, kind of the exact same thing as Waller in Detroit. So my sleeper, I got like 40. I'm a tight end. I don't know what it is about tight ends. I love tight ends so much. Maybe because it's the only position that I realistically think I could have played at any time. So I'll just read through the list. The number 1 is Adam Troutman, just because the Saints have no one else to play wide receiver or tight end. Their best pass catcher, maybe their only pass catcher right now, is Alvin Kamara. And Troutman, I mean, they traded all of the rest of their draft after the 3rd round last year to trade into the 3rd round with the Vikings to go get this guy. And his athletic measurables were fantastic. I think it's a guy who could break out this year. I'm a little wary of the Hill thing. Like I said before, if Hill's going to be the quarterback, maybe he doesn't have the breakout. If it's Winston, maybe he does have the breakout. I really don't know how that's going to look or how much I trust Hill. But I think Troutman can have a big year. Noah Fant, I don't know how much of a sleeper that is, but I think he's going to have a good year, and I really don't like anyone else on the Broncos, but I think he could be a big one. Dalton Schultz, actually, and I'm going to fade Blake Jarwin out of this. Jarwin was someone I loved going into last year. Now not so much. It seems like he's been slow coming back. And Schultz was really good last year, sneaky, because it was with Dalton, and they had other pass catchers there. But he was really good, and reports out of camp is that he's only continued to get better. Someone that I want to buy in an offense that's going to throw the ball a lot. And then Gerald Everett, who's now on Seattle, who's now with his old OC, who he worked with the Rams. I think that he knows that offense just as good as anyone else there. And they need a 3rd pass catcher outside of, you know, Lockett and DK. I think he could be the guy. So be interested to see what he does this year, and someone that maybe I'm targeting late. My avoids, Dallas Goedert. Sorry.
That's all right.
Ertz is still there. Hurts is the quarterback. You know, Smith is there. Hopefully he's healthy. They got to somehow justify the fact that they picked the worst wide receiver ever in Jalen Reagor. So
they can't.
Well, yeah, they can't. So it's just not someone that I really want to target where he's going, which is like tight end 7, tight end 8. So I kind of want to avoid him. Logan Thomas, I think that the outside wide now. And then my last one, fade Blake Jarwin. I don't think that he's going to have the year that some people expected him to have last year, and hopefully people aren't rebuying the hype that they bought last year with him. Go with Dalton Schultz instead.
You think that Schultz? I mean, if Jarwin gets the starting spot, you think Schultz is going to have enough value to matter with all the receivers there?
Probably not. I think that whoever wins the tight end role has value. I'm just betting on the fact Schultz. That I think that Schultz is going to be the guy over Jarwin. And these are both guys that you're getting late in drafts. If you're wrong, okay, whatever. But yeah, I would bet on Schultz over. I'd probably put him at, let's put betting odds on this because I love gambling. I think minus 175 that he's the starter day one.
All right, I'll take that. I think I'm actually a big believer in Jarwin. I think he's going to take that job and take it back.
We have our first bet on the board. First bet on the board.
First show, first bet. All right.
And it's a cowboy bet. Interesting. All right, that does it for this. Yeah, that does it for this week. Dan, thank you so much for joining us for the first time. Welcome to the Champions Round team again.
Thank you.
We will have you on. We'll have you on in the next couple of weeks to talk more fantasy football. Until then, everybody, enjoy the week and enjoy. Football's back. Hall of Fame game tonight.
Dallas, Pittsburgh. Let's go.
Oh, my God. Hit a Pittsburgh first half minus half a point because I'm a degenerate. Here's another bet. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Have a good one, guys.